Hi everyone, I am creating this video to demonstrate the best way to approach your drawing to understand value and the way that value constructs form. I gave you all this image that is of a sphere. It's a really good way of understanding, copying the value in the grays within this are a really good way of understanding how light reflects onto an object. So I did upload this in Canvas. You're welcome to print it out. I printed it out for this demonstration, but it's not necessary. I just happen to have a printer in my parents' house, which is like the first time I've ever had a printer in my vicinity. So I printed this out for this demo. And just please note these little changes of values. So you have the highlight here, which is the lightest gray. You have your midtone, which is going to be the middle most gray. Then the core shadow gets a little bit darker in here, and the reflected highlight. So you can see that there's a highlight. This really light gray matches this really light gray. And if you notice how this light gray almost, it comes to this really, really darker edge right here too. So this dark edge is rather important for creating the illusion of this being a round ball. And really oftentimes the darkest shadows are touching the lighter grays and then coming back to the darker grays. This is actually known as when the darkest gray touches one of the lighter grays. There's actually a term for that, and it's called a mock bend. And mock bends are often found in every surface, everywhere, where a lighter tone of gray hits the darker tone of gray. And it's really, if you were to draw in just values of gray, you would be able to really hone in on this and focus on this. But that's not super important because we're not trying to be illusionists right now. We're just trying to design and understand gray and how it can relate to form and inform the form. So as I said, there's a reflected highlight, which is the lighter gray, and then I already said that, talked about the core shadow, and then the cast shadow is pretty dark. It's probably just as dark as this core shadow here, maybe a little bit darker as it approaches even closer to underneath the sphere. So I'm going to just leave this here. And I have my materials that I'm going to use, which is my 12-pack of Blick Studio drawing pencils. Some of you don't have these, which is okay. You're just going to have to hone in more with like the weight of the pressure of your hand as opposed to being able to use these different grades of lead. So I'm actually using the 6B right now. 6B is here. This is the darkest grade. I'll just show you. So this is 6B with a little bit of pressure. I'll probably just actually just for this demo just use this, but since some of you don't have these pencils, I just have to kind of wing it here. H is also good. Oops. Got H. I like H because it's a good middle tone. And if you do buy the set, I really do recommend just kind of doing what I'm doing and just playing around with the way that like applying pressure and seeing how dark of a gray that you can get with these different grades of pencils. And then there's the 6H too. So 6H is like the lightest. I took from this pack of 12, I took the darkest grade, the medium grade, the darkest grade, 6B, the medium grade H, and then this is the lightest grade in the pack, which is a 6H. Okay, so I'm just going to start with these three. Just over here. And you don't need to tape your paper down. We're going to be doing this on Bristol paper. I hope you have some sort of drawing paper at least. Our Bristol paper is definitely necessary for when we do gouache, but I have this for now. I think I have like a 10 by 12 sheet, and that's okay. So tape off the edges if you want, don't tape them. I don't really mind, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to start with the darkest grade, which is the 6B. And so what I want you all to do is to just do a continuous diagonal across your page, back and forth like this. We're going to start with laying down a medium level of gray. We want a good mid-tone. We want somewhere in between this mid-tone and this highlight color, like that kind of gray color right there, just to lay down flat as a base. This is a really common drawing technique where you lay down a nice mid-tone, and then you can simply erase the highlights and add in the lowlights, which are the shadows, and then kind of just blend the grays together from there. So super messy right now. I'm just going to use the pads of my fingers, and in little tiny swirly motions, I'm going to blend all of that lead. Gets rid of that texture, although it's okay if you have that sort of drawing-like texture throughout this. This is definitely a drawing, so no points deducted from that. Okay, so now we have a nice little base on there. And it's okay, my fingers are dirty now. So one thing, if you have a hard time drawing a sphere, you can always use some sort of thing in your house that would create a circle for you. So I'm just going to use this tape oriented on my page. I'm going to move it a little bit to the left here so that I can create the shadow like down here. Just considering the composition. Although this is really just a study and this is a warm-up for your next assignment. So I'm just going to erase a little bit. I know that this is going to be a dark cast shadow, so that's okay. So now I'm going to create the highlight. So I'm going to erase the highlight out of this mid-gray value that I created. And then I'm also going to erase out the reflected highlight. So if you don't have, I hope you have an eraser for this class, it's going to be really important. You can make any sort of straighter edge on your eraser by simply like cutting it. So if a part of the material list is having an X-Acto knife, or I'm just going to use this box cutter, but an X-Acto knife is good. Just don't cut your fingers because you don't want to end up in the hospital. So you can simply just cut a little piece of eraser off, and then it makes like a really nice little thin edge. And I can erase that reflected highlight out. So I got my highlight all oriented. I got my reflected highlight oriented. And I'm going to take my darkest pencil once again, and I'm going to go ahead and just create the cast shadow, I'm gonna do the darkest tone of gray, do the light, and then the darkest. So I'm working on the darkest now. Yeah, so this demonstration is just here for you to get acclimated with how using graphite or lead really works, to get acclimated to blending and to really trying to create more than just 9 of those values of gray. The more values of gray that you have in this drawing, the more realistic and the more volume we're going to get from the sphere that you are drawing. Okay, so then the core shadow is dark. So I'm just going to add that. For gaining more control of your pencil, you would probably want to hold it a little bit closer to the edge down here as opposed to up here. So when I find when I'm doing really tight drawings, I hold my fingers are closer to the tip of my pencil or pen as opposed to far away. When you're using a pencil far away, you can capture more gesture, but we're really trying to be in control with this. Okay, so I laid down my darkest, I laid down my lightest. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab the mid, my what is this, my H pencil. This is like my most mid-value gray pencil. And what's so nice about buying a pack like this is that you can kind of work with the same amount of pressure that is being applied from your hand throughout the entire thing. And you don't have to think so much about controlling the weight and the pressure of your hand. Because the lead is more resistant, for me, it takes that thought process out. So I could sit here for a really long time and just blend these two together by going over the darker core shadow, kind of working in some like cross-hatching techniques there. But then also, I mean, the best tool as someone who is drawing is going to be your fingers. It's really good for blending. Also, there's like a chamois is a type of animal skin cloth that is really good for blending, but I didn't ask for it on your material list, and that would be something you would come across more in like a drawing class too. So it's just really like a back and forth between laying down some ground, some lead, and blending. And I'm also taking the lead and I'm kind of pushing it into that reflected highlight a little bit more too, because the more gradation we have from dark to mid to light, the more volume will be portrayed when I am done with my drawing. So then I have, remember the 6H was my lightest, my very lightest pencil. The lead that sort of, it almost feels like the lead is like resisting the paper, but I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of that around the highlights. And also this lighter grade pencil, once again, that's the 6H, is actually a really good pencil for blending as well. So every once in a while you can take this lighter pencil and work over the different values of gray that you lay down to blend these grays more. Then always, as we're taking breaks, and then like rubbing that in with our finger. Definitely need to add more of the core shadow. And make sure it really kind of has a round shape as well. Like this sort of C shape is going to help inform that it is a sphere. It's okay, like I said, to see this type of technique of, like, there's these lines. You can see that it's drawn from my hand. I really don't mind that, but I do want you in this exercise to really blend and push and try to control, get rid of that as much as you can. I don't mind seeing a little bit, but the more you blend, the more hyper realistic this will become. And the more you can learn yourself exactly how to control the lead to create form. Now I'm just using the darker 6B still, and the more lead that you add on top of the 6B, oh, I'm so sorry. The more lead that you add on top of the 6B, the darker it'll become. So remember, this reflected highlight right here is going to be actually next to one of the darkest low lights in the sphere. So try to have some sense of control when you're making that transition into the darkest gray from the core shadow next to the reflected highlight. Okay, so this is actually really off to a really nice start. Just want to make sure that the sphere is defined enough as it sits on top of its shadow. And I hope that that is a good, just general introduction. I'm going to work on this a little bit more and try to finish it up so I can show you like what a good finished example really looks like. And I hope that this was informative and that this was helpful to this assignment. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.